African time, and you're still tuned into News and Views. Myself, Salailo Makwidiri, and we're going to continue having these discussions around immigration enforcement here in South Africa. And another story that is unfolding with regards to this discourse is the Malawian High Commission out in Pretoria. There's an open letter which has essentially accused the High Commission of failing to support its own citizens, with reports that dozens of Malawis, including women and children, have been left sleeping outside the mission while waiting for assistance to return home, to be repatriated. The allegations paint a very, very troubling picture of overcrowding, poor sanitation, limited access to healthcare, and just a growing health concern, a humanitarian crisis that's unfolding. And they also raise a broader question. What responsibilities do foreign missions have to protect and assist their nationals when they find themselves in crises abroad? The Malawian government is yet to publicly address many of the concerns raised in the letter, but the criticism has sparked a very, very serious debate over enough is being done to assist vulnerable citizens that are stranded here in South Africa. And to help us unpack the situation, we're joined by independent researcher Mariam Jooma-Çarıkcı, who's going to be giving us insight on some of these allegations and concerns that they have raised with the Malawian High Commission. Mariam, jazakallah so much for joining us. Always a pleasure. Welcome to News and Views.
Thanks so much, Salalo. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all ours. I want to jump right into it. What prompted you guys to write this open letter to the Malawian High Commission? And what was the moment that convinced you that action was urgently needed?
So, Lalo, when I say we, because we are going to obviously be speaking about a group, it's basically a group of individuals and organizations that have come together to assist the migrants outside the High Commission with basic needs such as food and blankets and so on. So essentially, the group that has been working there has found that the conditions that that the migrants are being forced to wait in transit under are just absolutely appalling. And we wrote this letter because essentially there was nobody listening to the fact that people were sleeping since the 26th of June in the freezing cold. And they were sitting outside under a little carport kind of thing, where in temperatures where we, with our blankets and our electric heaters and everything else, still feel cold, and were left outside, basically locked out by their own authorities. So the 26th of June was when this started, and the second night, the guard, out of his kindness of his heart, allowed the group of migrants, which are numbering over 100 at least at a time, to be housed in the basement. Now the basement itself is just a carport. It's just basically an open space that is concrete. While this is better than sleeping outside, it still exposes them to the elements. There's absolutely no bedding, there's no carpeting, there's no warmth at all. And when we realized that this is a situation where the High Commission was really not interested in addressing, we decided, this is enough. We can't stand by as humanitarians, providing whatever we can as basic relief, while essentially their own government has a building. I mean, Salalo, I'm actually lost for words, because yesterday when we went in and we realized how massive this foyer is at the embassy building itself, that could take in all of the transit migrants, keep them warm, keep them in a safe place. And yet they insist that no, their own citizens must be, in a basement overnight in the icy cold. That's children, that's elderly people, that's pregnant women.
Very, very concerning. One might ask, Sister Mariam, why did you guys decide to make the letter public instead of addressing these concerns privately with the Malawian High Commission?
So we have tried. We have tried, Salalo. Our people who were engaging initially with one of the diplomats at the High Commission, and I have to tell you that diplomat was not even aware, except for when one of the team said to her, "Ma'am, have you seen, the people at the bottom? Are you aware that there's a pregnant woman that's just, outside?" And she said no, and she's sitting in her warm, comfortable office, and she had no idea. And so literally we got her to come down and see, look, can you see these are your people outside? And there's this complete disconnect between what's happening inside of this comfy diplomatic zone and what the reality is for their citizens who are literally running for their lives. And so when we tried to engage with them, there was, an intransigence with regard to housing them inside. We finally got hold of the ambassador herself, not just a low-level diplomat, the actual ambassador, was speaking to her directly on the phone, explaining to her what the situation is. And her answer to me was literally, we have no resources. Salilo, it does not take any resources to open a door. All they have to do is open a door. We are not asking them to get tents. We're not asking them to bring heaters. We're not asking for anything extra except to open the door to basically a building that belongs to them and which, according to diplomatic law, is Malawian territory.
And I think that's one aspect that people usually miss. The fact that a consulate or a high commission, its surroundings are essentially part and parcel of the country. They don't belong to the host nation anymore. You touched on this, whether or not the conversation is about, the High Commission having resources. Do you think it's a matter of them just not caring at all for, their people, or maybe there is a legitimate argument that can be made that there isn't a lot of resources to go around? We know the situation in Malawi. It's not the wealthiest country on the continent, never mind the SADC region. Maybe they're stretched, resource-wise. There were calls for, donations to be made for passes for those that want to be repatriated back home. Could maybe that be a genuine, case to be made for them?
No, Salilo, I'll tell you emphatically no. Why? Because other embassies like Mozambique, and Mozambique is not a wealthy country, have very happily opened the doors to the embassy for their nationals. In fact, they even got the building next door. They even managed to secure the building next door to the embassy as a place of safety and refuge. I mean, this is for a few hours, maximum a few days, because they are arranging the buses, right? So it's not a matter of being housed there for weeks on end. What you want is to keep children. I mean, the Medical Association, the Islamic Medical Association, has had doctors out there, a triple aid. We have a full-time, doctor that comes in every day to check Dr. Nazira. And basically, from her perspective, a lot of what they are dispensing in terms of medication are things that could be avoidable simply because these people are being exposed to the cold. They are now developing upper respiratory tract infections and so on. So with regard to resources, it's got nothing to do with that. I literally have never seen a larger embassy foyer in my life. It is that massive. They could easily just allow people to sit inside just for warmth, even if not for the day, for the night, simply for the night to sleep. That's all we're asking. I mean, this is ridiculous. As South Africans, we should be absolutely ashamed in what's going on in our country. But at the same time, the Malawian authorities can't simply look at this as a way of just copping out of their responsibility. And I would put it to you, Salilo, that actually this is a very strong indication of the prioritization of economic, incentives over people that Malawi has long demonstrated. And this goes to the fact that they have had very strong relations with apartheid South Africa. Back with Hastings Banda was the first African president to visit apartheid South Africa in 1971. And today, their relations with Israel are extremely strong, despite what the African Union position is. So it's a rebellion against humanity, and that's the way I see this government.
Very, very powerful words there, Mariam. But then just in closing, I just want to get your perspective on the events in South Africa over the last couple of months, the conversation around legal migration, the rise of organizations like March and everything culminating and leading to where we currently find ourselves. What do you make of it?
Look, I think that essentially there are a lot of overlapping factors. And the thing is, South Africa has been a tinderbox in terms of inequality and social, the lack of social justice since the dawn of democracy, so-called, in the country. So it's a build-up of grievances that are very real. We have no right to undermine the fact that people have real grievances. But at the same time, we have to look at how, even constitutionally, we've been set up almost for failure. And I've written a bit about this with regard to understanding that the Constitution, as much as it says, South Africa is for all who live in it, at the same time, it also puts the caveat that, dependent on resources. So it almost allows the government to have its cake and eat it too, where there is no urgency. So nothing is focused on deadline. There's no goal. So it can remain in limbo. You can have your social justice rights on paper forever, but there is no compulsion on the government to enact those and implement them. And that is where I think the Constitution, unfortunately, the document is brilliant, but the fact that we have a government that allows it to remain theoretical has created the situation. But let's not forget the external forces. And I think this is very, very important. When we look at, the acceptance of foreign companies and even, if we say individuals, buying land in prime property in Western Cape and other areas without any question, there's no one knocking on doors in, at Camps Bay asking for papers. It is the working class and the absolute poor and marginalized who are bearing the brunt of what is essentially a takeover of South Africa and an economic coup. This is the way I would see it. And our politicians are basically allowing it to happen. It's not a matter of a group that just came about and now they're running amok. The South African government is very happily allowing it because it realizes that it's been incompetent all these many years. And as civil society, we are not as awake to the fact that there are incredibly strong, powerful economic forces that are bearing down upon our country, and that if we don't take back our sovereignty very actively now, we're in for a very, very bad awakening.
Mariam Jooma-Çarıkcı, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure and always wonderful to be getting those insights from you. Really appreciate it. Hope we chat again soon.
Thanks, Salalo. If I may, it would give me a few minutes.
Sure.
I would just like to please appeal to the public to assist in donations.
Sure.
The organizations on the ground are really being stretched. They're providing food, blankets, sanitary products, and really we are running on a daily basis, and we need your support. So to your listeners everywhere, any kind of donation would be most valuable. And please remember that when we talk about sanitation, there's one toilet for over 300 people that come in.
Sure.
This is the level of debasement that these people are experiencing. So it's very important that we get the support that's required to give the migrants who have literally worked in this country for us, a dignified exit from South Africa.
There you have it, Mariam. Jazakallah so much for joining us. And thank you for those important points. We're going to take a quick break. News and views will continue after this.
Thanks so much.